Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into what is honestly one of the most mind-blowing economic miracles in modern history. We're talking about a tiny, incredibly vulnerable island that had virtually zero natural resources, yet somehow transformed itself into an absolute global powerhouse. It's a nation smaller than a lot of cities that literally did the impossible. Let me paint a picture for you.
Imagine starting a country with almost nothing. No oil, no gold, no vast farmland, no powerful military to speak of. Just a tiny island completely cut off from its neighbors. At the very beginning, experts looked at this new nation and believed they had almost zero chance of surviving. But something totally unexpected happened. Within just a few decades, towering skyscrapers rapidly replaced sprawling slums. They built one of the busiest, most massive ports on Earth out of mud and water. A country smaller than many cities became an absolute economic titan.
So how in the world did Singapore pull off what everyone said was impossible? To really understand how they built this miraculous wealth and engineered such an extraordinary society completely from scratch, we have to go back to the exact moment when literally everything could have gone completely wrong.
Part 1. The impossible start. Vulnerable and uncertain.
Okay, so before all the glitz and glamour, Singapore's unique geography was kind of a double-edged sword. During the British colonial era, it was mainly a trading port, but it was incredibly vulnerable, highly ethnically diverse, and dealing with crushing poverty. Then, the uncertainty peaked in a really scary way. In 1965, Singapore went through a sudden, deeply fearful separation from Malaysia. Overnight, they were an independent nation, entirely on their own, quite literally fighting for their survival.
The sheer panic of 1965 makes the contrast with today almost impossible to wrap your head around. Back then, you had vulnerable slums and a terrifyingly uncertain future. And today, it's a glittering global hub of skyscrapers with a fiercely secure economy. So when the entire world was betting on their failure, what exactly did the leadership do to actually survive?
Part 2. A strategy for survival. The blueprint.
When literally nobody else believed in this island, Singapore's leadership rolled out a strict do-or-die blueprint. They went all in. They aggressively poured what little capital they had into education. They lured in foreign companies by building world-class infrastructure. And maybe most importantly, they fought corruption with an absolute iron fist. They built highly efficient government systems driven by intense long-term planning. You see, when trust is your only currency, you have to build a rock-solid reputation with foreign investors. And that's exactly what they did.
Which brings us to a super fascinating economic concept, human capital. Because Singapore lacked physical resources, no oil, no gold, barely even enough fresh water, they did something incredibly brilliant. They effectively manufactured a natural resource. By investing heavily in the education and skills of their people, human capital became Singapore's primary resource. They essentially built their entire massive economy on the minds of their citizens.
Step by step, they monetized that human capital. First up, they used their strategic geography to completely dominate in trade and shipping. Then, they built out a robust manufacturing sector, proving to global companies that they were relentlessly, unquestionably reliable. And finally, they leveled up into advanced finance and technology. They systematically transformed their population into this highly skilled talent pool that the rest of the world absolutely had to rely on.
But here's the thing. Generating wealth was only half the battle. Now, they actually had to figure out where to put everyone. Almost nobody realized it while it was happening, but the country wasn't just getting richer. Its actual physical landscape was about to be meticulously engineered.
Part 3. The engineered city. Intentional design.
You have to understand, Singapore didn't just grow organically like most cities. They planned every single inch. They created a massive, incredibly successful public housing system where the vast majority of citizens actually live today. They rolled out a pristine transportation network, enforced those world-famous cleanliness standards, and literally wove lush green spaces right into the concrete, evolving into modern smart city initiatives. They engineered an environment so heavily optimized, it acted like a giant magnet for global talent.
Part 4. The cost of success. Trade-offs.
Of course, every massive success story comes with some pretty significant trade-offs, right? Looking at the data neutrally, the benefits are clear: extreme efficiency, unparalleled public safety, and just explosive economic growth. But this is balanced against strict government control and political restrictions. Plus, this hyper-competitive environment has created a highly demanding cost of living and a notoriously intense work culture. It is a wildly optimized society, but for sure it requires a very specific social contract from the people who live there.
Part 5.
Why the world studies Singapore. Global influence.
Despite the controversies, you can't deny the model is stunningly effective. Today, massive global companies set up shop in Singapore because it's cemented itself as the perfectly positioned business hub. It is absolutely crucial for global shipping routes, it stands as a premier financial center in Asia, and it's pouring massive investments into tech. Other nations are constantly trying to reverse engineer how this tiny island actually operates.
But that brings up a genuinely fascinating paradox. Can a country built on survival mode maintain its edge when survival is no longer the main threat? I mean, the strategies that saved them from total collapse back in 1965 aren't necessarily the same ones that are going to protect them tomorrow.
Part 6. The Future of Singapore. Staying Ahead.
Singapore's next massive challenge isn't just staying alive, it's staying ahead. Right now, the nation is actively strategizing to overcome 4 massive hurdles. They've got an aging population that threatens their workforce, severe climate challenges, which is a huge deal for a low-lying island, fierce competition from other booming Asian economies, and the urgent need to adapt to artificial intelligence. They are meticulously planning for these challenges today, essentially applying that original survival blueprint to the future. Singapore's story is incredible because it proves that geography does not always determine destiny. Sometimes, vision does. It's a story about what happens when a country decides that its greatest resource isn't what's buried beneath the ground, but what exists inside its people. A tiny, vulnerable island proved you can quite literally engineer a miracle. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, but I want to leave you with one final thought as we look at their future. As the rest of the world catches up, will the strict, rigid system that built Singapore's miracle be the very thing that holds it back? Or will they figure out a way to engineer the impossible all over again?
Thanks for watching World Decoded. Make sure to like and share, subscribe, and stay curious.